What a handsome young man. So good. Hey, we are right now in the middle of our Songs of Ascent teaching series. And if you're just joining us tonight, it's your first time with us, we want to make sure that you feel super welcome. I don't know why I stopped in the middle of that word. What a rush, though. It's like a drum roll to whatever I was about to say next. But we want to make sure that you feel super welcome. So if you don't have one of these booklets, a journal, we want to make sure that you get one by the end of the night. But just so that we can catch you up, and then kind of a previously on Hope Center, just to catch you up, the Songs of Ascent, the Psalms in general, to take a step back, really is the songbook of, I guess, the Jewish people, of the nation of Israel. And really what we have in this is a collection, a massive collection of songs, not only just of worship in the high moments, but worship that really spans the whole range of human emotion. I mean, if you open up the book of Psalms, you can find songs of love and devotion, and songs of heartbreak, and songs of fear, and songs that, I guess, express what it feels like when your best mate turns his back on you and tries to slay you. Because, I mean, we've all been there. But whatever it is, you can find a song, a psalm that really relates largely to whatever it is that you're going through. And I love that because it means to me, it says to me, that God isn't only interested in happy worship, but that God is interested, God is okay when we are feeling things. And in fact, God is more than okay when we learn to express and welcome Him in to the grand scope of emotions that we will go through in life. That God's not interested in just fake happy worship, but God is interested in our entire being. And in the book of Psalms, we see a whole lot of songs that really just are there for everything that we could go through. But right in the middle of the end bit, is these collection of Psalms, 15, called the Songs of Ascent. Really, they're at the Pilgrim's playlist. Really, they're a selection of songs that you would use for the road trip. Every year, I know we're going over this, but every year there were really 3 festivals that you were invited to, you were expected to in some parts of the nation, go up to Jerusalem, where the Ark of the Covenant was, where the temple was, where the presence of God, when God Himself resided, and you would make this journey up the mountain to meet with God, and these were songs that you would sing on the way. Because how many know that it is just crazy to make any journey without a playlist established before you leave? You're jumping in the car with somebody that doesn't know what tunes you're going to listen to. If it's a journey over about 5 minutes and somebody hasn't suggested a playlist, especially in the age of streaming, I don't know if you can trust these people. But what they did, and I think that they really set us up for a quality Spotify playlist, is they decided ahead of time every year we would sing these same songs, because there are songs of ascent that they would sing on the way up the mountain. They're the Pilgrim's playlist. They're the Sunday set list. When I was growing up, there was this interesting thing that would happen every year, every week, and we would know what day of the week it was because the radio station in Mum and Dad's car would change from AM, because they're learned doctors, to FM 96.5 Sunday morning, Sunday celebration. How many people remember that? It was like that voice is too low to be on like mainstream radio, but somehow we all just listened through it. But Sunday celebration. And you would know where you were going because the radio would switch from AM to FM, Sunday celebration would come on, and then just didn't matter what time of the day that you were leaving, mid-90s, my Jesus, my Savior. No, I'm not going to. But that song would come on, and it was like that song would come on, and what's wild about that song is that it not only described to us what was happening because we were in the car on the way to church, but it will also describe the songs that we would sing once we arrived. And so these songs of ascent, not only are they songs for the journey, because how many people know we aren't just looking back historically, looking at a group of people that would sing songs going somewhere up to meet with God, but we too now are pilgrims, not only just going to church, but we are pilgrims on our way to heaven, but not only going to heaven, but being formed for heaven. And so when we sing these songs, we not only remind ourselves of what the kingdom will be like, but we remind ourselves that there is kingdom life to be enjoyed here and now. And so I don't want, when we're studying the songs of ascent, us to look back and just, relegate it back to antiquity and just think that they are great songs for people that were going through a thing then, or they're only for when I'm going through things now. These are songs for the journey, songs for life, songs that describe and encourage and prepare us for the one day enjoyment of meeting with God face to face. Because life is a journey. Life is a highway. And we've all got to ride it. No. But see, there was the promise of meeting and worshiping when they arrived, but these songs served as a reminder not to omit God until we've arrived. And can I encourage you as we read these songs, as we go through this journey, that not only would we relegate our God time for when we're going to or when we're meeting with, but these songs, this whole study, this whole series would be a reminder not to omit God to when we arrived, but to enjoy God as we go. Because I got to tell you, if I had a choice, I would rather have a car that runs than insurance for one that doesn't. That I would rather have a car that runs than just insurance for a car that doesn't run. Because I think for a lot of us, the way that we look at faith and Christianity and Jesus is that that's great that I have a ticket, I have a pass into heaven when I die, but can I tell you that the Christian faith is so much more than that? It's more than just insurance for when you crash, but it is a way of life. Jesus didn't just call himself the gate, he called himself the way. And as we walk along the way, he invites us to enjoy life and life to the fullest. And so tonight, as we open, as we read, can we read it through the mindset of God? How can we involve you, follow you, serve you on the journey? Not just when we arrive, but as we go. Can we do that? In Psalm 127, it says this. This is what we're going to be reading tonight. It says, unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it labor in vain. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the watchman stays awake in vain. It is in vain that you rise up early and go late to rest, eating the bread of anxious toil, for he gives to his beloved sleep. Unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it labor in vain. Can I encourage you tonight that there is hard work in rest? As we kind of get ready, as we prepare ourselves for this amazing prayer meeting at the end of the night, can I encourage you that there is hard work in rest? This psalm was written by a man named Solomon. You might have heard of him. It's one of the 2 psalms in total that he would write. But this is a psalm written by somebody that knows what it's like to build. A man who knows what it's like to watch. He was so good at building, in fact, that he built the very temple that the Israelites would go up to worship at. He also built a palace in the same city, another palace in the same city, just down the road, another palace. He also built 3 other cities and a palace somewhere in the middle of the desert just for summers. So this is a man that knows what it's like to build. So sometimes we can come to church and think when it talks about how to live our life, this is just for a group of people so devoid and distant from actual life and what it means to actually build and develop and do something substantial in the world, that's great for them. But this was written by a guy that really did some kind of stuff. And so this is a psalm that comes from not only the wisdom of Solomon, but the wisdom of the experience of Solomon. A man that had everything, and what he does is he teaches us how to and how not to work. Because unless you build, unless you create, and God is creating with you, you're going to be doing it in vain. And unless you watch, which is protecting, so creating and protecting, really, that sums up the entirety of work. Unless the work that you do is done as well by God, you're going to be doing it in vain. And can I encourage you tonight, as we look at this, whatever it is that you're building, it could be a business, it could be your home, it could be your family, it could be any range of things, it could be your study, building that grade point average, it could be the church. As we do it, I just want to encourage you to look at it of how do we involve God in the journey, not just when we arrive. Tonight I want to talk to you about the hard work of rest. Straight away as we open this psalm, there's this tension that pops up that unless the Lord builds, those who build. Unless the Lord watches, those who watch. He must build the house, and we are the instrument that he uses to build. That immediately it pictures this image of God builds, I build. He watches, I watch. And it's kind of like, well, who's in charge? And really that's the whole question. But really what we see is that God must be involved in the building. There are two things that we see here at work, and the first is a reliance, and the second is work. That there is a rest and action involved in the success of what we do. That there needs to be a reliance and an action involved. And as we look at that, really what it brings to mind is the very image of faith. It's the recipe of faith, learning to work, but also learning to trust. That as we go about everything that we do in life, we need to learn to rest and work. They're two sides of the same coin. So often we differentiate it and we think, well, either God's going to build and I'm going to sit back with my arms crossed and wait for him to do all of the heavy lifting, or we think that God is so distant from what we're doing that maybe I'll think about him when I get to work, but get to church. But until then, when I'm at work, I'm doing what I have to do. But there are two sides to the same coin. The first side, God works. How many people just so glad that he is not dead, but he's alive? And if he's alive, he's moving. And if he's moving, he is for us, and that our God, he still opens doors. Our God still works. Our God still creates opportunity. Our God still heals. Our God still calls. Our God still works. In Hebrews 11:1, it says, now faith is the assurance of things hoped for and the conviction of things not seen. See, in faith, there needs to be a reliance. There is an assurance. There is a restfulness that we believe that God really works. There's a reliance on God. And second, we work. God works, we work. God builds, we work. And it's important that we understand this idea, because this isn't just an image of Solomon saying, as we go up the mountain, let's just remember God's done all the heavy lifting. But he's saying that, no, I want to invite you, when you consider all that it is that you have to do, don't distance yourself from what you're called to do, but as you do it with all of your might. See, unless God builds, those who build, there is inferred in there an element of the builders actually building. See, when we are called to build, we're called to watch. Ecclesiastes 9:10 encourages us that whatever your hand finds to do it with all of your might. The Christian faith isn't one that we distance ourselves from the world, doing all that we've been called to do, and sitting back and just assuming that God will do it all for us. God invites us to be part of his restoration ministry in the world. And in James it says that faith without action is dead. True faith is in fact moving. This is the recipe of faith, rest and work. And what we have to do is have a reliance of God and an active obedience. In Proverbs 21:31 it says this, the horse is made ready for the day of battle, but the victory belongs to the Lord. That we make the horse ready for battle, but the victory, the defining action, the deciding action is the Lord's. See, we do what we can, but ultimately it's going to be the Lord, it's going to be God that brings the victory. I don't know how often I find myself in a position all the time in my faith that God, if you prep the horse, I'll win the battle. That we approach life with this idea that, God, if you open the door, stay out of the room. That it's like, God, I want you to get it all ready, and then I will walk through that door, but don't come in with me. But what this passage is saying is, no. It's not a matter of just waiting for God to open the door, but saying out of the room. It's about saying, you know what? The decisive action is going to be God's, but you still have to get the horse ready for battle. Because can I tell you that if he's prepping the horse and you're saying, God, just saddle her up, throw a blanket on. I don't know much about riding horses. I don't know, like a rope as well. Include that. And boots. But stay out of the fight. I've got the fight from here. How many times in our walk do we think that, you know what, if only I would just see, I'm just waiting for that day that God opens that door so clearly for me. Or he would just make their hearts soft. They would stop being so, aggressive towards me and my faith. If the bank just called and said that they'll wipe the loan, then I'm going to start making some tracks in my finances. God, if they open the door and say, you know what, you've got the promotion, then I'll start to work really, really hard. But God is saying, no. Work and I will do the work with you. That there is a decisive action. The decisive action is not yours. The decisive action is the Lord's, but you still have to work. That there is an element of work to this, because if he's just opening the door but not coming in the room, he's not the Lord, he's a butler. That all you want, God, is a convenience. He's just a vending machine of blessing that lets you get where you want to go, and then you're free to do whatever you want. But can I encourage you, our God is not content to stay on the outside of our lives. Our God wants to join us on the journey. And when he joins us on the journey, when we build, he builds with us. And that is when our work has substance and success. So we must seek God in our work. He needs to be involved in the building. We need to look for him. As we work and look to him, he provides us guidance. He provides us provision. He provides us strength. And he provides us guidance. And as we do this, as we walk with God, and as we continue to both rest and work, as we continue to remind ourselves that it's not just about waiting for God to magically do a thing and then we get to do whatever we want, but when we say, God, I'm going to prepare myself. I'm going to prepare myself. Because as I prepare myself, I'm presenting myself in a position of expectancy that says, God, I'm going to do this because I know as I do this, your hand is upon me and your favor will begin to pour out on me. Because work, when we look at it this way, work is an action of faith. See, for a lot of people, don't misconstrue what I'm saying. Don't hear me in saying that if you just work really, 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 really hard, God will coincidentally open a door at the same time you feel like you've earned it. No, but when you work with a mindset that says, I am co-laboring with God in this moment. And as I work, I'm preparing myself, positioning myself for God to do his mighty work. This is a posture of faith. This is a posture that puts me in a place that God can come alongside what I'm doing, strengthen my hand, and bring about his kingdom in an incredible way. Otherwise, it is in vain that we stay up late and rise early, eating the bread of anxious toil. See, sometimes we can read that first bit, and otherwise it's in vain that we stay up late and rise early and think that that's a free pass from ever doing any hard work, but that's not the end of the sentence. It says, don't stay up late and rise early, eating the bread of anxious toil. It's not saying don't work hard, but it is saying check your snack. It is saying what's in your lunchbox as you're getting up early and you're going to bed late. Because can I encourage you that it is hard to tell sometimes whether you have got God work, whether you've invited God alongside what you're doing, because it's not like you open up your lunchbox and somebody turns to you and says, hey, what have you brought in, for lunch today? Oh, just some bread. Oh, that's cool. What is it? Oh, bread of anxious toil. Just goes great with some olive oil, some dukkha. But it's hard. It's not obviously it's not some physical bread that we can see, and when it just kind of begins to rise and we hear the ding, it's like, oh yeah, you know what? Look, I mustn't have involved God in this one. But can I tell you that there are some heart checks? The same as if you've been eating the same thing for a little while, you can start to feel its effects in your body. If you've only been eating the bread of anxious toil, you will start to feel its effects in your body. You will start to be restless at night. Your anxiety levels, as you continue to stew and meditate on things that you have no ability to change, will just continue to ruminate and flood around in your head. But it's saying that you're staying up late and rising early. You're tossing and turning and stewing on things. The anxiety loose in your heart is there because your toil is there because you're worried about the things that only I can do. See, in the Bible, when it comes to success, especially when Paul is talking about it, when it comes to doing any manner of things that has great reward or is incredibly successful, the word success isn't necessarily used. The word that's used very often, most often, in fact, from Paul, is this idea of being fruitful. He says, that you would be fruitful and multiply, and time again in the New Testament, especially in Paul's writing, he encourages us to be fruitful, which has this idea that as a farmer, there is not a whole lot that you can do other than just tend to the soil that you've been given, plant at the right times, be incredibly good at what you can control, but there is an element that has to be God's. As a farmer, you can't control when the rains come. You can't control what happens to the soil. You can't control all manner of things, but being fruitful has this idea of saying, you know what, I'm going to be good. I'm going to steward what I've been given well, but I'm also going to be so okay in stepping back and saying, God, would you do what you do best? Bring your kingdom onto this thing and allow it to begin to flourish. See, a farmer can't produce fruit any faster than God brings fruit about on its tree. And so as we toil, unless God builds the house, those who toil in vain, because all we will be doing is thinking about the things that we can't control. But as we constantly give over to Him, and as we step back, we begin to realize that rest really does take faith. That rest really does take faith. Have you ever been on holidays with somebody that just can't switch off? I mean, like Pastor Wayne is my dad, and I mean, it's like, when sprinters cross the finish line, they run about 800 meters more before they kind of slow up. That's dad on holidays. It's like he just like hits it about 4 months into the holiday. He begins to slow up and his blood pressure finally begins to drop. Those people, it's just like go. But the reason they can't switch off is because they're constantly checking back on the things that are happening in the office that they're not currently in, hoping that all of the things that were supposed to happen are happening by people that aren't them, that they're not entirely confident, can do the job as well as them. Even just today, this is a thing that happens all the time with delegation. You give somebody a task that you don't really want to do, but you're confident they can't do it as well as you. Isn't that what delegation is? That you hand this task over, and even today, my eldest son, he's 4 years old, Dallas, we just had some rubbish, and we said, hey, can you go outside, toss this thing in the bin? And we were tidying the house, and we send him outside. What's crazy is when you send a 4-year-old outside, it's potentially the scariest thing that you will ever do, especially our son. And so what you constantly have to do is check over the railing to make sure that he's where he's supposed to be. He's not just picking up sticks, hitting our car. He's on track. He's made it to the bin. Awesome. 5 minutes later, he's thinking about throwing the rubbish in the bin now. And you're constantly having to check back because you're not confident that the person that you gave it to is able to do the thing that they were supposed to do. And when it comes to our faith, I feel like this is just so true of our hearts. That as we stay up late, as we eat the bread of anxious toil, we have in our minds that we've delegated to God to do the things that we can't do. We say, you know what, I'm going to do the things that I can do, and then I'm going to delegate to God all of the things that he can't do. And we continue to check back. I don't know how many times I pray, God, this is in your hands. And then I just checking back. You still got that? Still holding it? My future? Still good. We say, God, this thing has been laying on me so heavy, this bad report, this thing that has me so twisted and bent and anxious and tossing and turning at night, this thing that has me constantly eating this bread of just anxiety. God, I give it to you. Still got it? I just want to make sure that you're doing what you had to do. God, I'm in such a bind with my health. I've been to everyone that I can. I'm doing all of the right things. And I know that you said that you're my healer. So God, I give it to you. I'm just checking that you've done that. And we find ourselves giving things to God, but becoming more and more anxious because we're not convinced that he is able to do the thing that he's supposed to do. Can I encourage you that whilst we need to learn to be okay with giving God things, we have those roles completely mixed up. See, we think that we stand back and we delegate things to God. That makes God a subcontractor in our lives. We're still jumping on the horse and riding into battle, and as long as he made sure that everything on the horse was in the right place at the right time, then we're going to be just fine, and we keep on checking back that he's made it right. But our God is not the subcontractor in our lives. Our God is not the one that answers to us. We are the ones that answer to him. We are the ones that have been delegated to. You see, if Dallas had asked me to place the rubbish in the bin, he would not have lost a wink of sleep, worried that I did not get that rubbish to the bin. When we understand that the one with more authority is doing the things that we can't do, then the anxiety, then rest comes upon us. We begin to work out of a place of rest, knowing, God, I'm in a position that I can't do anything about, but I know, God, that I've done all that you asked me to do. See, we don't ask him to do the things. He has given us the work to do. We are his people. He is our Lord. When we place him as the Lord in our life, we place him in his proper position, and we don't stand back worried that God can't do what he said that he would do. Because our God, he works. Our God, he watches. When it says that unless God watches, those who stay up in vain. Can I encourage you? That is because we have a God that never sleeps. We have a God that is on the job. We have a God that is constantly watching, constantly for you, constantly has you on his mind. But can I tell you, how do we get that rest? And I love this. It's in the last line. It says, because he gives his beloved rest. How do we enter into that place of rest? By embracing the love that he extends to us. We have to embrace his love. When we don't view God as a bad boss that gives us things to do that are so far out of our ability, and we're struggling under the weight of it, and we're bent and just hoping that some time God has enough time to swing past to check in on us. But when we know that it is out of love that he watches, that it's his beloved that he gives sleep, when we embrace the love that Jesus has for us, then we know that as we build, he's building with us. And we know that as we watch, he's watching over us, because it's to his beloved that he gives sleep. He grants rest to those that he loves. We have to learn. We have to stand knowing that we're his beloved. And as we do that, we can begin to work restfully, knowing that as I go about my work, God is going about his. As we begin to watch, we know that God is watching over us, not because we're just servants, but we are beloved. That we are so loved. And I don't know how many times I found myself believing in Jesus, but not believing Jesus. That I looked to him for just that ticket at the end of the road, but I forget to look at him as the way, the one that invites me to walk alongside him. In in Matthew 11, it says this: "Come to me, all you who are wearied and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Folks, if we thought that the responsibility of making all of everything that we hope to happen in life rests squarely on us, then absolutely we're going to be eating nothing but anxious bread. We're going to be eating nothing but anxiety and restless nights and fear and worry. But Jesus says, "Come to me, everybody that's bent over with this weight of having to feel like you've got to carry it all yourself. Come to me. All you who are burdened and heavy laden, all you that have the weight of the world upon your shoulders, come to me and I will give you rest." Why and how will he give you rest? He will show you that as you work, he has been working so much harder. As you walk towards him, he's already been running towards you. As you watch, he's already been watching over you. Now, ultimately, what we see is that unless God does the saving, those that try for their saving will do it in vain. Those that try for salvation, unless God is doing the saving, will do it all in vain. Because the truth of the matter is that God has gone before us and made a way for us to have not only a fulfilling, full life, not only a glorious encounter at the end of our days, but he has given us life and life to the full. With every head bowed and every eye closed across this room, I want to give you all an opportunity. For those that haven't yet made that decision to say, you know what, I feel like I've been trying to carry this all myself. I feel like my whole life I've been trying to carry everything I have to do, but more than that, I've been trying to carry this weight of, I guess there's no way else to say it, but the weight of my sin, the weight of doing things my way and sometimes getting them wrong. But Jesus says, "Come to me. I will give you rest. Hand me all that has you burdened and weighed down. Now I will give you rest." If you've never done that, but tonight you're saying, I feel like I've been eating nothing but that toil, that anxious bread, not knowing where I'm going to end up, not knowing what is really out there. But can I encourage you, friend, there is rest for you in Jesus. That your soul can find its rest in him. If you've never done that and you want to tonight, I want to give you the opportunity on the count of 3 to say yes. Because what happened was Jesus doesn't just give a promise, but he proved his ability to do it by dying on the cross and rising from the dead. And that anyone that has faith in him, belief in him, can have everlasting life, can know the forgiveness of their sins. If you want to do that tonight, you want to say yes to Jesus. On the count of 3, I want you to just raise your hands. Some good people will see you, and then we're going to pray. And then we're going to start to just believe that God would do something incredible here. And if that's you, on the count of 3, across this room, 1, 2, 3. Tonight you're saying yes to Jesus for the first time, maybe the first time in a long while. Father, for those that are on this journey, for those that are looking for ultimate rest, I pray tonight that they would find it in you. God, we thank you for your ability not only to take the weight of our sin, but give us the joy of your salvation. In Jesus' name, amen. Hey, why don't we stand all across this place?